What's up everybody, welcome back to another Dazzle video. Today we're going to be talking about patch 7.37c and then I'm going to give my opinion on the item builds for Dazzle right now. In terms of the actual patch, Dazzle did not get any direct changes, and honestly the patch itself is not too crazy. It's not going to be game changing. It just nerfed some of the heroes that had too high of a win rate and buffed some of the heroes that had a really low win rate. Dazzle right now is like right in the middle. He's sitting at around a 46 to 48% win rate, which is not, it's terrible compared to, you know, what we want him to be, but it's not as bad as some of the other heroes in this patch. So let's go over a few of these changes. Greaves got slightly nerfed. Locket got nerfed. I'll talk about Locket a little more in a second. Pipe got nerfed, and then a small nerf to Atos and Solar Crest. I think that right now, Greaves is a great late game, mid game item for Dazzle. If you are looking for a dispel or if you're trying to group up and push, it's a good sustain for your team to have. You're probably still going to buy Greaves even after this change, this small nerf. The big change though is probably to Holy Locket. I don't think a lot of Dazzles were buying Holy Locket, but I did get questions about if Holy Locket is a good item on Dazzle. There's a few reasons why Holy Locket is not the best item for Dazzle. First of all, it doesn't upgrade your damage from Shadow Wave. Even though it seems like Dazzle's damage should be equal to the heal, and if you're buffing the heal, it should buff the damage on Shadow Wave. That's not the case. Holy Locket only buffs your heal. Your damage numbers still stay the same. Holy Locket also doesn't have an ideal buildup for a support Dazzle. And if you're a core Dazzle, you're probably going to be going, I mean, not probably, you're definitely going to be going Ags anyway, so you're not going to get it as a core. But as a support, the 1000 diadem and the 800 recipe is just... it comes at a time in the game where you need that second item. And generally, for most support games, it's going to be a defensive item, like a Glimmer Cave Force Staff or a Yule Scepter. Holy Locket doesn't give you any additional aspects to the hero. So for example, a Glimmer Cape gives you that invisibility and that movement speed boost for 5 whole seconds. Yule Scepter gives you a dispel and invulnerability, and it has a lot of uses, like you can Yule's your opponents, maybe a Troll Warlord or a Ursa. Force Staff is good for pushing yourself out of cogs or an Underlord pit. And then Ether Lens is always good on Dazzle because it buffs the poison touch and it keeps you out of the way of a lot of the spells that are in the game. These main 4 support items give Dazzle a different aspect to the hero. And Holy Locket really only amplifies what you do already, but it does so less now, 5% less. And another reason why this is the case is I think historically Dazzle has been viewed as a healer. And he does do a ton of heal still, don't get me wrong. But there are other heroes now throughout the game that do actually a lot more heal than Dazzle. So you have Tinker with his repair bots that does a ton of heal now. You have Enchantress with her wisps, Nature's Attendants that does a ton of heal. You have heroes like Witch Doctor with his E that's keep getting buffed and buffed and buffed. Even heroes like Omni Knight do a ton of heal. Of course, Io and Oracle also are classic heroes that heal a lot more than Dazzle does. And then finally, the last reason why Holy Locket is not the best item is because for 2,000 more gold, you can have Ags. And Ags buffs everything by 500%, whatever it is, depending upon how you cast it. It ups your utility. You can break Lincoln Spheres with it. Your range at which you can heal and damage is increased by triple in some cases. It can push waves a lot faster now. It just has more impact on the game overall compared to Holy Locket. So for Holy Locket, you have this brief period of time that your heal is increased. But then after that, as the game goes into the late game, it just feels like a waste of money where you feel like you could have had Ags at this point rather than Holy Locket. And Ags gives you a lot more HP, a lot more mana, and it's just a better item in every single way for 2,000 more gold. So briefly going over some of the item builds for let's start with support Dazzle. You can choose from either of these 3, Wraithband, Null, or Bracer. I have been going Wraithband. Wraithband is a little bit better for trading right clicks, and for me, I like to play my early game around my poison touch. Nulls is better for mana regen, and then Bracer gives you a little more HP, so you're just a little more tanky. So you can kind of play around with it based on your own playstyle, whichever one of these 3 works for you. After that first item, I will go Arcane Boots. it feels like you need to stay on the map and be either farming or fighting in this patch. There's a lot of cores right now that are very popular, like Primal Beast, that just run around the map and cause chaos. You got Queen of Pain, Ember Spirits. So having mana at all times in the early game, mid game is very important. So you can smoke and play around your core's ults, or you can TP into a defensive fight at a tower and cast some defensive spells. After Arcane Boots, there's a couple different routes that you can take. I would say the majority of the time you want to get your first defensive item. In my opinion, the best three right now are Glimmer Cape, Yule Scepter, and Force Staff. So Glimmer Cape right now, in my opinion, covers a lot of the bases. So it gives you invisibility, which is great in general. It gives you a little movement speed boost, and it gives you 25% magic resistance. Yule Scepter is great against certain lineups, especially great against Silencer. So as soon as Silencer ults in the early game, you just Yules and you're able to cast spells right away. Some of the other matchups that it's good for are maybe like a mid Bounty, a mid Razor, which links you, maybe a Death Prophet who's just running through the entire team and you want to Yules her and run away, mid Quaps if you want to dodge her Sonic Wave. Things like that. Maybe a mid-storm with Dust and an Orchid. Force Staff is good for, getting out of Clockwork's Cogs. Maybe against a Jug Spin, Pudge with his Rot, Underlord with his Pit. Matchups like that, Force Staff would be great. It kind of depends on what's happening in the game, but you really can't go wrong with any of these three. And then the next thing you want to do is prioritize your Shard. The Shard is just too good of a Shard to pass up. The price is cheaper than any of the major items that you're going to buy at this point, and the 1.6 second Hex on multiple heroes in a team fight is really good. It's going to cancel channeled abilities, it's going to cancel TPs, it's going to do a 100% slow for 1.6 seconds. And then after that, it kind of becomes wide open. Sorry to cut in here. This is post-production Nene. I forgot to mention one of the most important support items for Dazzle, the Ether Lens. Ether Lens is one of the best items on Dazzle because it lowers your chance of missing a shallow grave and buffs your poison touch in a lot of different ways, helping you land a lot more hexes, slows, and graves, shadow waves, just overall spells throughout all your team fights. So you can go for a Greaves if you need another Dispel. You can go for an Ags, depending upon how the game is going. As a support hero, there's a couple different scenarios where I would buy Ags. The top two are if you're winning by a lot and if you're losing by a lot. Ags is pretty much the item that you're going to bank on and take a chance on. It might be a game where you need a Ghost Scepter. If there's like a Monkey King that's just jumping on you every single fight. If there is a Night Stalker that's just jumping on you every single fight and there's just nothing you can do and your team can't stop them, maybe it's time for a Ghost Scepter. So the best that you can do is waste their time, make the enemy buy a Nullifier, and maybe after that you can get a Blink or upgrade your Force Staff into a Hurricane Pike. In the late game against a lot of melee carries, Hurricane Pike is very good. Now we're going to move on to core items on Dazzle right now. As a core Dazzle, you're probably going to have a little more freedom in terms of having a level advantage, so you don't necessarily need to have Bracer, but depending on the matchup you might still want to go Bracer. In the lane, I go Wraithband for the most part. I still get Arcane Boots because the concept remains the same. You still need mana to stay on the map, farm, fight, and scale. What I've been finding in this patch is that it's hard for Dazzles to just straight up carry the game. In previous patches, you could get a Boots of Travel, Octarine, Ags, Blink, and just blink around the map, farm the entire map, TP into any fight, take the fight, and win the game almost by yourself. Now I find it a lot harder to be able to have that kind of impact on the game, and I find that I struggle really hard against the other very popular carries in the game, even when we have similar net worth. So I have been going Midas as my next item. The reason Midas is possible in this patch is that Dazzle's early game is generally pretty good. His Weave and his Poison Touch makes it so he's very good in most matchups in the lane. Assuming you have a good laning stage, Midas is a possibility. You're not going to be handicapped by too much. After Midas, I will go Ags And most of the time I'll go Octarine Core, Shard, into probably Blink, into either a BKB or a Greaves based on the matchups. And then that last item is kind of up in the air. Sometimes it's a Hurricane Pike, sometimes it's a Scotty, sometimes it's a Gleipnir, sometimes it's a Conda, sometimes it's an Arcane Blink. So these are just kind of matchup dependent, but the main items I think are these, and the Midas is going to continue to help you lead the net worth chart, and I find that that's very, very helpful in the late game to be able to carry games. I don't know if this patch is really going to make that much of a difference. They didn't really add too much to Ringmaster. They just decreased his base speed by 5. They slightly nerfed his Strongman Tonic, and I think this is a buff. I'm not even sure, really. Wheel of Wonder and Spotlight, the duration increased by 0.3, the linger duration, so I think that's a buff. The explosion timer went down, so I think that means it's a buff because it explodes faster. I think people aren't too excited about it because it's just a support hero, and it's not really like a carry hero that just wrecks the game. Like when Monkey King came out and Pango came out, I remember those heroes were pretty busted in the beginning. I think that's it for this patch, guys. So like I said, Dazzle is sitting at a pretty bad win rate right now. 48% win rates across the board at most brackets, maybe even lower. Just be aware of that, guys. It's not the best patch for us right now, but I guarantee you it's going to help us be better Dota players if we try and win every single game. Understanding how to play with the team is something I'm really working on this patch. Hope you guys are happy in game and in life, and go Dazzle.